In her previous life, after divorcing Luis, she left their 3 children in his care, never imagining that he would die soon after and that each child would meet a fate more tragic than the last. The eldest, after enduring years of relentless bullying, snapped and ended up killing someone. He was sentenced to prison. The second, drawn to a life of aimless fun and recklessness, racked up so much debt that he died alone in a landfill. Her youngest, her only daughter, fell into the hands of a predator. Mentally unstable, the girl tried to run him over with a car, but ended up crashing. Her body was never found. When she received the news, the shock overwhelmed her, and she collapsed. But when she opened her eyes again, time had turned back. She was standing once more in that exact moment in the day she and Luis went to sign the divorce papers. Chapter 1. She opened her eyes to find Luis standing right in front of her, just as handsome as she remembered. Without even thinking, her body acted on instinct. Smack. Luis clutched his face, furious. "What the hell is wrong with you? Didn't I satisfy you last night, or what?" She didn't respond. She simply stared at her own hand. It hurt. This wasn't a dream. She turned to the calendar, January 23rd, 1986. She couldn't believe it. She was back to the exact day when she had divorced Luis in her previous life. And shortly after that, she had discovered she was pregnant again. That baby was the only child she ever raised. She poured all her love into that child and tried to forget the 3 she had abandoned with Luis. But fate was cruel. Luis died. The children followed, one after another. The pain of remembering this shattered her. She sprang from the bed, got dressed in a rush, and kicked Luis hard. "Get up." Luis, still red from the slap, pulled the blanket over his head. "No way. You said if I made you happy last night we wouldn't go through with the divorce. You lied. I'm not going." She'd had enough. She grabbed his ear and yanked it, hard. "We're not getting divorced."
"Not now."
"We're going to bring the kids back." Luis's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. He jumped out of bed, threw on his clothes, and pedaled her to his mother's house on his old bicycle. On the way, he tried to act casual. "So, why the sudden change of heart? Could it be that deep down you just can't live without me?" She shot him a cold glare. "Don't flatter yourself. This has nothing to do with you. If she went through with a divorce, the kids would stay with him again. But if she didn't, she could stay close and protect them. In her past life, she had failed as a mother. She had run from her responsibilities, and the regret nearly killed her. In this life, she swore she would never make that mistake again. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe as she knocked on her mother-in-law's door. It was Ethan, her eldest son, only 11 years old, who opened it. He froze when he saw her. She smiled as warmly as she could. "Ethan, sweetie, it's Mommy. You've been here with Grandma for a whole week. What do you say we go back home together now?" But Ethan didn't smile. His voice was polite, but cold. "Thank you, Mother. We're fine here. There's no need for you to worry." His words hit her like ice water. A chill ran through her body. Then she remembered at this point in her past life, her relationship with the children had already fallen apart. Chapter 2. It was all Luis's fault. They had met through an arranged marriage. Before her, he had always been obsessed with his so-called impossible love, Alice, who had dreams of going abroad. But fate had kept them apart, and she had ended up becoming his wife, the woman who bore his children. After giving birth to their first child, Ethan, she had sunk into a deep postpartum depression. Of course, back in the 80s, no one talked about things like that. But every day she suffered. She could barely move, barely speak, and all she wanted was for Luis to be by her side. Instead, right after the birth, Luis left the country to be with Alice. He didn't come back until a year later. By then, she was mentally broken, lost in a fog, barely functioning. In her worst moments, she even had thoughts of harming Ethan. That's why Ethan had grown up afraid of her and bitter. Luis eventually realized she was in serious condition. Out of guilt, he began to take care of her again. That's when they had their second child, Ryan. But she hadn't recovered, and Luis ended up handing Ryan to his mother to raise. Ryan grew up with no emotional bond to her. He called her crazy, pulled cruel pranks, and once even cut all her clothes into shreds. They fought bitterly. She screamed at Luis. She asked for a divorce. That finally scared him. He realized he couldn't live without her. He got on his knees, begged for forgiveness, and promised he'd never leave again. For a while, things calmed down. Then their daughter Fiona was born. Fiona was sensitive, but she grew up constantly hearing people call her mother crazy, and over time she began to reject her too. She cried whenever she saw her. Sometimes she even lied and told Luis that her mother had hit her. Once, she came home crying and asked Luis if her new teacher would be her mommy instead. That's when she found out Alice was back in the country. All the pain she had buried exploded in her chest. She asked Luis for a divorce. He refused. He begged to stay. That's what led to the disaster the night before. She seethed with rage. It was him. He was the reason everything with the kids had gone so wrong. She glared at him, but he didn't notice. He just kept making things worse, yelling at Ethan. "Pack your stuff. Take your siblings home. Your mom finally decided to come get you. Don't be ungrateful." Her heart clenched. She saw it in Ethan's eyes the way the light dimmed. He glanced at her once, then silently began packing. Wonderful. Now she'd hurt him even more. She rushed to fix it. "You don't need to pack anything, Ethan. You don't have to go. Mommy's staying here with all of you." Everyone froze. Luis, her mother-in-law, and all 3 children. But she didn't care what they thought. In this life, she would never abandon her children again. Chapter 3. Or so she believed. But clearly, she had underestimated how deeply her children resented her. On her first day staying at her mother-in-law's house, she got up early and lovingly prepared breakfast for Ethan, wrapping it neatly and placing it in his lunch bag. She followed him from a distance to school and watched him pull out the lunch she had made only to toss it to the ground with disgust. Seeing the food splatter everywhere made her eyes sting. After he left, she ran over and quietly picked up the pieces. Ethan treated her with complete coldness. She knew things wouldn't change overnight. That afternoon, she brought Ryan his favorite treat, peanut brittle. His eyes lit up with joy. He even ran to his grandmother. "Grandma, Mommy bought me peanut brittle." But her mother-in-law just sneered. What a miracle. The sun must have risen in the west. She finally remembered she has a son. Then she walked away. Ryan kept acting like everything was fine, and for a moment, she let herself believe it. She smiled and began playing with him. Everything had been going relatively well until her mother-in-law left to buy vegetables. That was when Ryan looked at her with a mischievous glint in his eyes and suddenly hurled himself down the stairs. She barely had time to react. All she heard was a sickening crack followed by a piercing scream. Ryan was bawling uncontrollably, and Fiona came running out of the house, flinging herself on top of him while shouting, "Brother!" As she rushed over to see what had happened, Fiona shoved her hard and screamed, "Get away! Bad woman! You pushed my brother!" The neighbors, who lived just on the other side of the wall, came out at the noise just in time to hear Fiona's accusation. "Even a tigress protects her cubs," one muttered. "We always said that woman was crazy. And look, poor thing. If she broke his leg, his life is over." Hearing those words and seeing the looks on Ryan and Fiona's faces left no doubt in her mind. These kids would do anything to force her to divorce Luis. Just then, her mother-in-law returned. The woman took one look at the scene, dropped her grocery bags, and began shouting with her hands on her hips. "I told you Luis had to divorce her. He's so stubborn. If something happens to the child, what will we do?" Her face frozen with cold fury, she pushed Fiona aside and shouted with absolute authority, "Everyone shut up." The entire group fell silent. Only Ryan kept crying. She knelt beside him and felt his leg. Luckily, it wasn't broken. That brat knew exactly what he was doing. Narrowing her eyes, she looked at him seriously and said flatly, "There's no saving it now. You'll be limping for the rest of your life." Ryan stopped crying immediately, stunned. He stared at her in disbelief for a few long seconds and then burst into genuine tears. Chapter 4. Everyone was accusing her, but she remained calm as still water. She had no intention of taking anyone to the hospital. Her mother-in-law didn't even look at her. She picked up Ryan and headed straight for the door. But just as she was about to leave, Luis arrived with Ethan. "What's going on here?" Her mother-in-law was too furious to answer. The neighbors all chimed in at once, their voices overlapping as they explained. Luis and Ethan turned to look at her both with a very different expression now. Ryan kept sobbing, "Dad, it was Mom, I'm going to be crippled forever," while Luis frowned. "Don't worry, son. I'll take you to the hospital. You won't be crippled." She let out a cold laugh. "Don't be so sure. I'm betting Ryan's leg is broken." Ryan's wailing intensified. "Bad Mom." She took advantage of his confusion and continued, "If you don't jump down now, your leg might disappear forever." Ryan let out a high-pitched scream, and before anyone could react, leapt out of his grandmother's arms. Right in front of everyone, he landed perfectly, both legs intact. The crying stopped. A snot bubble formed on his nose. "My leg is fine," she smiled. "Of course. You only threw yourself down a staircase. What could possibly happen?" Ryan nodded brightly. "I knew it. I jumped myself. How could I have broken it?" Dead silence. Fiona's face twisted, and she smacked him. "Idiot. You ruined everything." That's when Ryan realized he'd messed up. He quickly hid behind his grandmother, sheepish. Luis's expression darkened. "So, you pretended to be hurt and blamed your mom?" "Ryan, did your brain fall out on the stairs?" And it wasn't just Ryan. She was convinced all three of them were involved. Ethan's disappointed expression said it all, was still plotting something. She had been too naive. Even between a mother and her children, once there's a rift, it doesn't close so easily. The moment the neighbors realized it had all been a setup, they switched sides and began scolding her mother-in-law instead. With kids like that, any mother would lose her mind. Her mother-in-law apologized to Luis one by one. Back home, dinner was already on the table. They all sat in silence. When it was Ryan's turn to be served, she cleared her throat softly. "Those who bully me don't get to eat." Ryan froze. Then he shouted, "Why not?" She smiled sweetly. "Because I'm a bad mom, remember?" Ryan glared at her. "Then I'm going to eat anyway. This is Grandma's house. I can do whatever I want." Even her mother-in-law protested. "Kids are still growing. You can't deny them food, no matter what." She stood firm. "Not just Ryan. Fiona too. They both called me bad woman and joked about something as serious as a disability. If they don't learn now, what will they do next time?" Ryan and Fiona started yelling and throwing a fit. Luis took a deep breath. Silence. They both stopped immediately and looked at their father with teary eyes. But with the threat of divorce hanging over them like a guillotine, Luis had no choice but to side with her. He forced himself to be stern. "Listen to your mother. It's your fault for making such a cruel joke. Skipping a meal won't kill you." His mother scowled. "Luis." "Mom," he snapped, "stop spoiling them. You can see where that's gotten us." In the end, Ryan and Fiona were left crying in the corner while Ethan quietly ate his food. She gently placed a piece of chicken on his plate. "Eat up, Ethan. I know you like this. I made it just for you." Ethan's eyes sparkled for a brief second. His voice softened. "Thank you, Mother." Chapter 5. After the meal, her exhausted mother-in-law asked them to take the children with them. She took Ethan's hand and looked at Luis and the other two kids. Then it settled. "I'm taking Ethan to live with me for a while. You three stay here together." The three children froze and asked in unison, "Why?" She smiled calmly. Earlier that morning, she had come home carrying the lunch Ethan had thrown away. She ran into Luis on the road and told him what had happened. Luis's brows furrowed with concern. "That boy is shutting down more and more. His teacher says sometimes he goes a whole month without speaking." A chill ran down her spine. She knew exactly what that meant, early signs of depression. A depressed mother inevitably pulls her children down with her. Ethan was their firstborn. They named him Ethan because it meant gift from heaven. Thinking about how he had ended up in her past life, it haunted her. That's why she made a decision. She would take him to live with her. Only the two of them, alone, could rebuild what was lost. Louise had resisted at first. Because always she threatened him with divorce, and he had no choice but to agree. Of course, she didn't tell the children the real reason. She only said that Ethan was about to start middle school and needed a quiet place to focus. Ryan snorted. So that means you're coming back? What a pain. Dad, can't we just get a new mom? Louise's face turned stern, and he gave Ryan a light flick on the forehead.
No.
Stop talking nonsense. Then he looked at her and Ethan. If anything happens, use the payphone and call me. And just like that, their new life began, just the two of them. Ethan had always been a very mature boy. He never caused trouble and knew how to take care of himself, and that's what broke her heart the most. Most 11-year-olds still clung to their parents, begging for hugs and sweets, but Ethan never did. She took a deep breath and gave him 3 simple rules. 1. If anything happens, call Mom. 2. You're allowed to cry or be angry, especially in front of Mom. And 3. Always trust Mom. Ethan nodded, but his guarded eyes said he was afraid of doing something wrong, afraid of making her mad. Even when he was being bullied at school, he never said a word. Chapter 6. After 3 days together, she noticed something was off. Ethan came home each afternoon with dirty clothes and a dull look in his eyes. He ate quickly, then locked himself in his room. Curious and worried, she peeked through the crack in his door and saw he had hung a punching bag. Every night after dinner, Bam, Bam, Bam unleashed his rage in silence. At just 11 years old, his face already carried a deep, quiet fury. During dinner, she tried to ease into the subject. Did anything happen at school today? Ethan shook his head. No, Mother. Nothing. Don't worry. Still distant. Still holding back. She bit her tongue, swallowed her discomfort, and the next day, she followed him. Sure enough, halfway to school, some boys blocked his path. Hey, Psycho's kid. Your mom's a nut job and you're just like her. Ethan clenched his fists. His face twisted with fury he could no longer hide. Her blood ran cold. When one of the boys picked up a rock, she darted forward and wrapped herself around Ethan. The rock hit her instead. The pain was sharp and breath-stealing. You brats, she shouted, shielding Ethan with her body. He stood frozen in place while she screamed at the boys. What's wrong with you? Where are your parents? Who taught you to act like this? The boys only laughed. Psycho. Freak, she gave a cold smile and raised her voice. You all hear that? These boys just verbally and physically attacked a classmate. Their parents clearly aren't doing their jobs. A group of police officers appeared at the end of the alley. The boys' faces drained of color. They turned to run, but more officers arrived from the opposite end. They were trapped. After a long talk, the officers took them to the station, then returned them to their homes. She rubbed her sore back and gently stroked Ethan's hair. Were you scared? Ethan stared at her, confused and blinking back tears. Why did you jump in front of me? She paused and answered calmly, because you're my son. Of course, I'll protect you. She reached to touch the cut on his lip, but he recoiled. He was trembling, on the verge of a breakdown. He hadn't spoken much in days, and when he finally did, it came out hoarse and raw. You hate me. You've always hated me. Since I was little.
She didn't argue.
She just apologized. You're right. It was my fault.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to forgive me, but I want to try again. Can I? Tears streamed down his face. I threw away the food you made me. I'm not a good son. I hated you too. She shook her head. That's okay. Next time I'll make something even better. How about that? And this time, he didn't pull away. He let her hug him, whispering, just this once. Her throat tightened.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you for letting me fix what I broke. From that moment, their life together settled into something peaceful. Every day, she tried to make him laugh. They cooked side by side. She told him bedtime stories. Slowly, Ethan started acting like a normal kid again. He smiled more. Sometimes he got shy and curled up beside her. When she caught a cold, he went to the neighbors to ask how to make soup and cooked it for her. Louise had never done anything like that. It moved her deeply, and she regretted more than ever not cherishing Ethan before. But in this life, she still had time to make things right. Chapter 7. A month later, Ryan and Fiona showed up, holding hands. "Hey, are you coming back home, or what? Dad's about to get stolen by another woman and another kid." Ryan looked like a street cat dirty from head to toe. Fiona's ribbons were undone, her tangled hair greasy and unkempt, like no one had brushed it in days. She swallowed her urge to yell, cleaned them both up, and made them something to eat. Only then did she sit them down and ask what was going on. Turns out Alice had moved into her house with her son, like she owned the place. After 2 lifetimes, hearing that name stirred nothing in her. In this life, she only cared about her children. Ryan and Fiona were fuming, talking over each other, begging her to come back and kick Alice out. She let out a sarcastic laugh. "Weren't you the ones who wanted her to be your mom? Especially you, Fiona." Fiona blushed and pouted. "I thought she was better than you. She was nice to me and Ryan in the garden, but she is a kid of her own." The little girl had just wanted an easy mom. But once she realized Alice had her own child, the excitement faded. Worse, those 2 little troublemakers had spent the entire month fighting Alice's son and losing. Fiona rested her head on her mother's lap, eyes soft like a puppy. "Mom, come back home. Bring Dad, too. I want Daddy." Alice had divorced, lost her place to live, and Louise the idiot had let her move into their home. Give the kids back to him? Not a chance. This was the perfect opportunity to win the children over. "Don't be silly," she told them. "I'm sure your dad's just helping her out. She'll leave soon." Fiona opened her mouth to protest, but she quickly covered it. "For now, you 2 are going to stay here with me and your big brother." Ryan recoiled like the idea gave him hives.
What?
"I don't want to. Living with Mom means yummy food and fun games," she said sweetly, cutting him off. "Does your dad cook at home?" Ryan hesitated. Louise could cook, sure, but the food tasted awful. In the end, Ryan and Fiona puffed their cheeks and stayed. But she noticed Ethan didn't look thrilled. While the 2 little whirlwinds explored the apartment, she pulled Ethan aside. "Ethan, do you not want them here?" He gave her a forced smile. "Of course I do. I'm glad to have my siblings around." But he didn't sound convinced. At home, even Louise and Grandma always expected Ethan to be the mature one, to put up with more than the others. He was probably scared that she'd do the same, focus on Ryan and Fiona and leave him behind. She thought for a moment and gently hugged him. "Even with your siblings here, you'll always be Mommy's most precious little angel. And honestly, I'm a little scared too." Ethan froze. She smiled. "You know how much those 2 hate me. I'm not sure I can handle them alone. Will you help me, Ethan?" She even gave him a wink, a trick she'd picked up from Fiona. Ethan's face lit up instantly. He straightened his back like a little commander. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of them." She smiled back with sincere gratitude. Someone once said that in families with many children, love doesn't need to be divided equally, just love the eldest with all your heart, and they'll learn to take care of the rest. And yes, her decision had been absolutely right. Chapter 8. Fiona was full of wild ideas, but there was still a gentleness to her. Lately, aside from begging for fancy hairstyles, she had actually been well-behaved. Ryan, on the other hand, day 1, he blew up her hot water thermos. The entire building thought something had exploded. Day 2, he got into a fight with another kid, and the boy's parents came to their door yelling. Day 3, he took his final exams, came home with 2 giant zeros, and to top it all off, she stood there clutching a feather duster, taking deep breaths to keep herself from exploding. "Ryan, who did you give the food vouchers to?" Ever since she left Louise, She had been saving those vouchers little by little to buy something nice for Ethan's birthday. And now, when she checked her purse, they were all gone. Her head was spinning. She didn't even need to ask, she already knew it was Ryan.
He didn't deny it, but he refused to say who he gave them to.
Her chest ached with anger. Ethan helped her sit down.
Don't be mad, Mom.
I'll help you earn more vouchers. She pressed her temples and patted his hand. This is an adult problem, honey. Ryan, completely shameless, said, obviously. If I took them, it's your fault for leaving them out. Her blood boiled. She didn't even finish the sentence. The world spun, and everything went dark. Emma, suddenly, all three kids panicked and ran toward her. Mom, what's wrong? Don't die. They all spoke at once, making her headache worse. Fiona sobbed while hitting Ryan. Stupid. It's your fault. You killed Mom. Ryan froze, then shouted back. I didn't kill anyone. It's not my fault. She's stingy. I just took a few vouchers. A sharp pain pierced her chest. She almost coughed up blood. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Both of you. Be quiet. And just like that, the two youngest shut up. Together, the three of them helped her up. She held her stomach and eased onto the couch. Ethan brought her a glass of warm water. After a few sips, she finally began to feel better. Ethan looked at her, concerned. Mom, what's wrong? She sighed and placed a hand on her belly. Mom's pregnant. You're going to have a baby sister. All three kids stared at her, eyes wide with shock. Chapter 9. Ethan quickly calmed himself and got ready to head out. I'll go to Grandma's and get some fresh eggs. Before leaving, he gave the other two a stern warning. Don't upset Mom. Take good care of her. Ryan and Fiona, for once, sat quietly in front of her like two little quails. Fiona's eyes sparkled. Is it really a sister? She nodded. In her past life, after divorcing Luis, she had raised her youngest daughter alone. Ryan looked at her belly, dazed, his eyes slowly turning red. Back when she was pregnant with Fiona, he was still small and living with Grandma. He never got to feel what it was like to be a big brother. But once he met Fiona, he stepped into that role naturally. He always protected her, even when it meant taking the blame. Like that time someone ruined her makeup. Everyone knew it was Fiona, she couldn't keep her hands off anything. But Ryan took the blame and got a beating from Luis. He wasn't the most obedient child, but he had always been a great big brother. Now, he looked at her belly with trembling lips and asked, Will the baby sister hate me? She raised an eyebrow. I don't know. Tears streamed down his cheeks like peas falling from a pod. I'll listen to you from now on. I won't make you mad anymore. Can you tell the baby not to hate me? Well, she muttered. Hell must have frozen over. Then, teasing, she added, You did steal all her food vouchers. She's hungry and very cranky. Ryan froze, then clenched his fists. I'll get them back. I promise. Her eye twitched. But don't do anything stupid. Tell me the truth, who did you give them to? He stayed silent for a long time. Then finally he murmured, I gave them to that witch. Her face hardened. Alice. Chapter 10. Ryan confessed that 2 days ago, they had run into Alice on the way home. She told him and Fiona to come back with her. Ryan got angry and called her a witch. One of Alice's students attacked him, and even though Ryan won the fight, he ended up with a huge bump on his head. He was about to leave when Alice stopped him. Leaving just like that? She said with a sweet smile. When that boy's parents come looking for revenge, your mom will have to take the heat. Ryan froze. Alice kept smiling. Your mom never loved you that much. After this, she'll hate you even more. Ryan frowned. That's none of your business. Alice covered her mouth and giggled. Of course it's not. But since your father was kind enough to take my son and me in, I can't just stand by while your family tears itself apart, can I? Then she offered to solve everything if he gave her enough food vouchers. She tricked me. Ryan wiped his tears on his sleeve, his voice breaking. I just wanted to get the vouchers back before you noticed. I'm sorry, this little brat actually understood more than he let on. He knew things at home were tight. He knew those vouchers were hard-earned. Her chest burned with fury. She stood up abruptly. Let's go. We're going to see your father. Damn Alice. And damn Luis too. The kids had been living with her for 3 days, and he hadn't shown his face once. That's his idea of fatherhood? She stormed back to the house with all 3 kids. And there they were, Alice clinging tightly to Luis. Honestly, Alice did look more refined, more delicate. In his arms, she resembled a tragic novel heroine. Luis whispered, "All these years, I never stopped thinking about you. I always regretted it. If I had married you, maybe my life would have been different." Luis furrowed his brow, trying to pull away. "That's all in the past. I love my wife now. Let go, clap, clap, clap." She applauded loudly. Both of them jumped. Luis instantly stepped away from Alice. "Elise, I can explain," she cut him off coldly. "No need. I'm not here for your little soap opera. I came for Ryan." Alice looked down, but her voice stayed sweet. Ryan and Fiona were so reckless, running off like that. Luis was so worried about them. Ryan was about to explode, but she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let me handle this." He hesitated, then pulled her hand away, clearly uncomfortable. Luis stared at her, completely confused, as she calmly walked toward him. "What's going on?" he asked, just before she pushed him aside and slapped Alice across the face. Luis froze in place.
Elise.
"What are you doing?" He rushed to catch Alice, who nearly collapsed, but Elise stood back, watching them with a cold, detached gaze. "Alice, don't you feel even a little shame? Tricking a child, where are the food vouchers? Give them back now, or I'm calling the police." Luis frowned. "Vouchers? What vouchers?" Ethan stepped forward and calmly explained everything. Luis's expression changed completely. "Elise, you must be mistaken. Alice, she's not like that." Ryan's fists clenched in fury. "So you think I'm lying? You don't believe me?" Fiona burst into tears. "Mom believes us. How can you not believe your own children?" Luis had no words. And Elise didn't defend him. In her past life, her children had chosen to stay with him because of her illness. This time, it was his turn to feel what it was like to be rejected by his own kids. Chapter 11. Alice tried to defend herself again, but by then, Elise had already called the police. With the officers present, Alice had no choice but to return the vouchers. Luis had no way to explain anything anymore. He tried to apologize to the children, but none of them were willing to forgive him so easily. Children see the world in black and white. And this time, Luis had shattered their trust. Later, he found Elise alone and pleaded with her to speak to them. "They're my kids," he said. "There can't be resentment between a father and his children." She gently stroked her belly and replied calmly, "Fine. But on one condition." Luis raised an eyebrow. She gave him a small smile. "Let's get divorced. We'll just say it was due to irreconcilable differences." Luis went pale. "Elise, we agreed we wouldn't divorce." She rolled her eyes. "I said we wouldn't do it yet. You're the one who misunderstood." Luis stood up, his face tense. "I don't agree. Then I'll file for a contested divorce," she said flatly. "Your opinion doesn't matter anymore." Even though Alice was gone, the neighbors had seen everything. They could all testify. Luis had no way out. His mother rushed over as soon as she heard the news, begging Elise to reconsider. So Elise took a moment to reflect and gathered the 3 children in front of Luis and his mother. "Your father and I are getting divorced. What do you think?" Ethan was already emotionally close to her. But Ryan and Fiona, they weren't as attached, and she feared they might choose Luis again like they did in her previous life. But to her surprise, they simply frowned and then nodded like it was no big deal. They should get divorced. They fight all the time. "I'm going with Mom." "Dad, go live with that witch if you want." Luis's face turned black. "What the hell are you saying? Can't you wish something decent for your father?" Fiona jumped in. "My brother's right. You've always liked that awful woman. She ran to Elise's side and grabbed her hand. I didn't understand anything before. I liked her too, because you liked her. But now I know no one's better than Mom. Elise felt a warmth in her chest so deep it almost hurt. All the effort from the past few weeks had been worth it. Louise, clearly upset, looked to Ethan. And you? Do you want us to divorce too? To everyone's surprise, Ethan shook his head. I don't want Mom and Dad to get divorced. He said it with such sincerity that Elise's heart nearly stopped. Chapter 12. If Ethan truly didn't want that, then maybe she could postpone the divorce. Nothing mattered more than her children's emotional well-being. Louise smiled, thinking he had already won. Elise, remember, if even one child doesn't want us to divorce, we won't. That was our agreement. And she had no intention of breaking her word. She was about to nod when Ethan continued. But Mom's pregnant, Dad. Louise and Grandma were stunned and then overwhelmed with joy. That's wonderful news. Why didn't you say something sooner? I'm going to have another grandchild. I need to tell everyone. Elise smiled faintly and said nothing. But Ethan didn't let them celebrate for long. I didn't want you to get divorced before. But now that Mom's pregnant, I think it's the best thing for both of you. Louise froze. Ethan looked him dead in the eye. Dad, with all due respect, you're a decent father. But as a husband, you're terrible. Louise's jaw tightened. Grandma scolded him immediately. Ethan, watch your mouth. He's your father. But for the first time, Ethan didn't listen to her. Dad, do you remember what you did when Mom was pregnant with Ryan and Fiona? Louise looked away. Ethan lowered his eyes, forcing a bitter smile. Every time Mom got pregnant, you were never there. You always had some excuse to stay away. When I was little, I hated Mom. I didn't understand why she had me if she didn't love me. But these past few days, after reading everything a woman goes through during pregnancy, I realized something: moms are fragile when they're expecting. And Mom proved she didn't hate me. She was sick because you made her sick. Maybe you loved her. But you loved her so little it was like not loving her at all. So even though I don't like it, even though it hurts me for Mom and for my baby sister, he lifted his eyes resolute. I want to tell you, let Mom go. The room fell into stunned silence. Ethan, her eldest son, stood there facing his tall, powerful father like a grown man. And in that moment, Elise felt a strange sense of peace. Louise, to his credit, wasn't entirely irrational. He looked at Ethan, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time. He stayed silent for a long while. And in the end, he nodded softly. All right. Chapter 13. Despite his mother's desperate objections, Louise and Elise signed the divorce papers. Unlike in her past life, this time, all three children stayed with her. They cared for her with genuine tenderness, always attentive, without her needing to ask. Louise never went back to Alice. He stayed alone in the house they once shared, occasionally sending over food vouchers. He didn't speak to her in person, but when he traveled for work, he sent letters. In those letters, sometimes directly, sometimes cloaked in nostalgia, apologized. He admitted to his mistakes. He reminisced about their past. And almost always, between the lines, he asked, Elise, do you think there's still a chance for us? In the world of adults, nothing is ever completely burned away. She never outright rejected him. She would reply with vague lines like, we're still friends, aren't we? But deep down, they both knew they weren't even friends. Not anymore. Eventually, the baby was born. This time, she named the child on her own. She gave her the same name she had in her past life, Miranda. And she would carry only her mother's last name. She wished that in this life, Miranda would grow up surrounded by the love of her siblings, living a bright, joyful life untouched by the shadows of the past. When the baby was nearly a month old, a sudden memory struck her. It had been around this same time in her previous life that Louise had died. That night, she couldn't sleep. Restless and uneasy, she sent him a message, asking if he could bring over his famous caramelized pork. In her other life, he had died in a car accident that very night. This time, she warned him clearly, don't drive. When she saw him arrive at the hospital, holding that dish in his hands, she exhaled a breath she hadn't even realized she was holding. His fate had changed too. Luis didn't suspect anything. He simply smiled, patiently waiting for her to finish eating. Then, with hopeful eyes, he asked, "Elise, should we get married again?" She looked at him still as handsome as ever and answered with a single sentence, "Take care on your way home." She watched disappointment sweep across his face. It was obvious. Luis, in many ways, was a good man. Maybe if she were a softer woman, she might have forgiven him by now. But she could never forget the mental torment he had caused. As she watched him walk away, she felt something she had never felt before: lightness. This was a good time to be alive. A time to live her own way. And love? It just wasn't worth it.